What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Lore Reloaded. I am your lore master of the day, James. It is always a pleasure to see all you guys. I apologize, I didn't realize we were live. I was actually reading the script to Emissary, where there was families on board Ben Sisko's ship when they were fighting the Borg themselves, and a civilian died. Not only did a civilian die, her son watched her die. So I apologize. I didn't realize we were going live. Let's just jump into it, shall we? Hey, if you're watching this video on demand, you know what exactly what I'm about to say. Check me out at twitter.com/lore reloaded, as well as twitch.tv/lore reloaded. Gotta be hanging out with you guys today. We got the Iron Wolverine. What is going on? Welcome to Aperture. You're not safe in Aperture is saying hi. What's going on? Josh Street. Why do I go blind every time Laura starts to dance? It's probably because of the neck beard. Probably. Whoever wrote this should die, says David Deister. Fair enough. Everybody relax. Don Juan is here. Don Juan. And apparently I have one hell of a neck beard going on. Thank you. Thank you. And Don Juan also points out that if no children on the ships, we wouldn't have Wesley. We wouldn't have Wesley indeed. And I think that is the biggest... Wesley is not only one of the best reasons why you shouldn't have children on board a ship, but also one of the strongest pro-choice arguments I've ever had. Bird of Prey 5, starting it out early, helping out the channel. That is how this channel continues to thrive. Thank you so much. Says Jennifer, we can't just leave her. That is true. That is true. And if she hadn't been on that ship...
Sir? The last thing I expected.
If she hadn't been on that ship, wouldn't have had to leave her. V-Show Delvis, we're going to jump into this almost immediately, but V-Show Delvis, I'm going to take you to task for a second, good sir. You intimated on my most recent video that if I needed to, that I would do a live stream if I needed to fill time to address all of the issues and things. Sir, let me tell you that I am not that smart. What I do is put up videos, and if there's a strong passion about it, I will definitely do a video on it. But I like your way better. I like your way better. Tizungari, what is going on? It's Puss in Boots, who has changed the name. It used to be just Puss in Boots, so it's Puss in Boots. What's going on? Or Atakawatinga, how you doing? So let's jump into it. Porrick Maxwell, always a pleasure when Porrick Maxwell is here. Not as fun as when Logan's available, but still, Porrick Maxwell, very, very cool person. So let's just jump into it. Let's have that discussion. So this is based on a video that I did, and I swear this video was just done on a lark. It was just done to have some fun. A lot of people thought that it was like a jab, or I was doing a serious video, which just amazes me when I do videos that are obviously joking. People take them seriously. But for the most part, it was just having some fun about should families be on Starfleet ships, specifically Starfleet ships. And so during the video, I do all these horrific things that are happening with the background of a sad song, or a song about kids and parents, right? And Safeguard Prime is here. Actually, Safeguard Prime, I think you're the one that pointed it out, asking why the heck am I using a religious song. Honest to God, didn't even think about any religious connotations to it. It was just a song that I liked because I'm a dad with daughters. So I didn't even think about that. I'm sure people are going to talk about how I'm bashing religion now or something. Not you necessarily, but I'm sure other people are going to find a way to make that work. But this is something that I may actually do an honest-to-God real video on, like an actual lore debate, because I'm on the fence about it, and I think there are two sides to it. The big issue I have with families on exploration and military vessels is that it is more likely that those families are going to get attacked or hurt, right? Safeguard Prime, my apologies about that again, talking about asking me why I used a religious song. It's a good question. I don't know why you're apologizing. No need to apologize. People think that I don't like being called out. I don't mind it, especially if you're right. I didn't even think about that. So that was a good point. I need to watch that in the future. But families on exploration and military ships is absolutely stupid. A lot of people will say, well, you'll fight more, you'll be more apt to defend your family and things like that. But that's why I use the example of the Vidians and the example of of the Borg, because the Vidians and the Borg will take section by section by section by section, and while you may fight well at first, if you know families are on decks 11 through 16, and the Borg take over decks 11 through 16, you've lost your ability to be an effective soldier. I can tell you that if I was on a Starfleet vessel as a Starfleet officer, and I knew that the Borg had completely taken over the section where the families are, I would not be effective. Even more so with the Vidians. I don't know which is worse, to be honest, the Borg or the Vidians. And the one with the baby, and that's why that's the first thing I hit you with. That is why I use that example as the first one, because that is exactly why you don't want families on vessels, because their organs could be harvested by an enemy force. And I think that all of this honestly is, and I'm going to start looking at your comments very shortly, but I think honestly all of this is the fault of Starfleet. And specifically TNG era pacifism Starfleet. They never went out of their way to delineate between a military Starfleet vessel and an exploration Starfleet vessel. And that they really should have. I think that if they had had two different fleets that they made absolutely clear what was what, I wouldn't have as big an issue. Like the Oberth class. Was it the Bozeman? I think with the Genesis, might not have been the Bozeman, but the Oberth. If you made it clear that that was not a military vessel, and you kept it out of where most military instances happened, and you had families on that vessel, that would make sense to me. I could see that. And if you would make it above board that these are the vessels that aren't military, these are the vessels that are, then I don't know that it's the smartest or wisest thing to do to continue to call them all Starfleet ships and to have it all under one umbrella, but that at least makes more sense to me. I don't know. What are your guys' thoughts? Mad Sloth says, given us how they don't get paid, forcing people to be away from their families for years will lower the number of people willing to join. That's fine. I completely agree. Well, first off, they're evolved humans. They've moved past the need for wants. They want to make humanity better. But even then, that's fine. Absolutely. You know, if you want to stay at home with your family, good. I want people who want to explore. I want people who are willing to sacrifice. Don't need you on it. We all have our priorities. Nothing wrong with wanting to stay home, but you're just not Starfleet material. Nathan Norman, you need kids on a starship if you have a generational ship, or you're going so deep into space that you'll not be returning for your own territory for a decade or two. Otherwise, they're just human shields. See, I don't even know that I agree with that. If you have an exploration vessel that's going to go away for 5 to 10 years, you don't know what's out there. We do, because we watch. You have the Vidians, you have the Borg. What other terrors? You have that one alien that wanted to experiment on 20% or 50% of the crew or something stupid like that. You have the Q. You have all kinds of things out there. You don't know what's out there. Q who is excellent in explaining why. There are terrors out there that you don't know that you're going to face, and there's no reason to put civilians on a ship and put them in put it at a higher chance. What's going on, Cryptic Streams? Did we see families on any other species ship? Ducat having his daughter aboard his freighter is the only example I can think of. I don't know. I don't know if we saw... I don't know. That's a good point. Ducat did, but yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. I don't think so. I think Starfleet used families on the Galaxy class, and your words, not mine, are literally space apartments. Sure, someone came up with a good example. Before I do that, Crimson Call. Oh wow, is this his normal streaming time? I try to do 2 streams. There's been some stuff happening that has impacted my ability to do that, but I try to do 2 streams, one in the morning and then one in the evening. In the morning is for those who are across the pond. Evening is more for my U.S. audiences. But what was I talking? Oh, someone was talking about, and they made a good point here, is that the Galaxy class starship should have had saucer separations a lot more than they did, which I still would have an issue with, but would make more sense. So if you want to have a generational ship, or you want to have a exploratory ship, and you go out of your way to make two sections to the ship itself, and so when you have to go into combat, you separate and send the part that's made for combat into the fray, that makes a lot more sense. And so maybe part of this is that they had a good idea, but they didn't utilize the saucer separation as much as they should have. Humans are going to have kids. If you were 10 years in space, you're going to force abortions. No, there's more gray to it than... There's obviously gray, Bird of Pride. I would say that someone having a child is different than just bringing your families on, right? So the question becomes, do you transfer them? How do you take care of that? Because humans will have kids, or even aliens will have kids. And I'm sure that they have some way of handling this in our current naval situations, right? If you have someone on a ship and they get pregnant, I'm sure there's a way to address that in the real world. The main drive section of the galaxy was mentioned by Worf to be very formidable. Yeah. And interestingly enough, though, when you watch the fights, it really seems like the saucer section is pretty stout, too. But they should have made it where the engineering section, the secondary hull, was the mainstay of where most all of the weapons are. When you wanted to fight, it was the secondary hull that you fought with. And that the saucer section could defend itself, but not as nearly as powerful as the secondary hull. What's going on? Peter Quinn says, hello, Lore Meister. About time I caught you. Well, you've caught me, good sir. You've caught me, good sir. Families make sense within the context of the story, i.e. it makes sense that the Federation would allow it, in my opinion, even if it is a bad idea. It is very Starfleet and very Federation to do actions that will get people killed or turned into something they don't want to be. Of that, we agree. I think that within the universe, when you look at Starfleet, when you look at Federation, choosing actions that are going to get people killed, turned into Borg, or their organs forcibly removed from their bodies while they're still alive, simply because you're too stupid to really think things through, very, very, very Starfleet. We're on the same page there. Peter Quinn, am from Trek Yards. Well, good. Welcome, Peter Quinn. Trek Yards is awesome. I love them. Samuel and the captain, I absolutely love Trek Yards. I talk to him like at least every other day. Pretty good people. Pretty good. And a great channel. Not that they need my shout out, but if you haven't checked out Trek Yards, you guys need to check out Trek Yards. By the way, we got 16 thumbs up, 1 thumb down, and 58 people watching. What's up with that? Hit that thumb up or thumb down. Thumb it down. I tell you what, the rest of you who haven't thumbed up so far, thumb it down. You're too scared to do it. Too scared. Didn't all of the Galaxy classes have the separation? Yeah, most Starfleet ships had some form of saucer separation, or were supposed to. The Galaxy class did for sure. Let me take that back. In Alpha Canon, not a lot of ships had saucer separations, or we've never observed them having saucer separations. What is supposed to be assumed based on what we've seen in the background from interviews and things, most all ships were supposed to have some kind of saucer separation. But it's never actually been observed in theory. If you can put a warp drive in a runabout, you can put one on the saucer. Yeah, I agree. They didn't, but I can agree. Thank God the Hansons took their daughters to document the Borg, or Voyager wouldn't have had their best episodes. That's true. That I stand corrected, Don Juan. Don Juan has proven me wrong. We have all the kids on all of the ships. All the kids. How many of the Galaxy-class ships were destroyed with all hands and civilians? There were at least, including resets, where it never happened, 4 that I can think of. No, 3. The Odyssey didn't have any. So 3 that I can think of. That includes the Enterprise when it gets reset. Having families on board is idiotic. When the Enterprise was sent to deal with the Cardassian situation, it could have been destroyed if a fight broke out. That would be a lot of children dead. And yeah, it would have been a lot of children dead when they dealt with the Klingon Civil War, when they dealt with the Romulans. It was stupid idea. What part held the families? The saucer section. was where the families were. Though interestingly enough, when they did saucer separations, it always shows how they're like all rushing and all trying to get to specific parts, when specifically no civilians were allowed in the secondary hull or in the engineering piece. If they did, it was a special exception. Anything and everything a civilian could want was in the saucer. And in fact, the saucer was designed to be aesthetically pleasing to the eye, specifically because of the civilians. Bird of Prey, if you're 5 years away at max warp from Federation territory, what do you do with a baby? You can't send them home. Abortion is extreme, but the point is legit. Bird of Prey 5, I have stated I'm not completely sure how you would handle that. That is a good question. That said, that specifically does not justify bringing families on because somebody could get pregnant. It is almost the exact same like saying, well, no, I'm not. I don't know what you would do, but I don't think that's the answer. I'm pretty sure the writers just kind of forgot the families. Well, interesting thing, Dat Fish Boy, believe it or not, when you do the research on it, they actually think about the families. They talk about how they considered the families being on board and the impacts, and they would hold back on what they wanted to do because the families were. And late seasons in The Next Generation and on for the rest of Trek, they stopped having families on board because they saw, just writing the scripts, they saw why this was a bad idea. Mad Sloth 2, yeah, I always found that funny how they had to evac kids from Star Drive where area when they never have been there, but it did make the death of the D more... Yeah. Yeah, it's obviously to add something to it, right? Bird of Prey 5, I agree it isn't the same, but it's just a topic that came up. Yeah, I mean, again, and it's a good question. What do you do? I don't necessarily want to get... I'm not going to get into it, let me say this. But I will say that I would be against abortions necessarily, but I don't know what you would do with that. I guess you'd have to build your ship, even if you didn't have families on board, you'd have to build your ship with an understanding that that could happen, just understanding human nature, and deal with it. And probably have strong regulations against it, against fraternization, against becoming pregnant. I don't know, that has evil connotations too. I don't know. I don't put militaries together, but I think it's a good conversation. It seems to me that they're split. It seems to me the Federation splits families up who serve in the Federation. You hear my husband serves on the ship, my wife serves on that ship. Yeah. Don Juan, $4.99, fire the baby cannon. That's exactly what they need to do. I mean, everyone knows one thing that is well established in lore, in canon, is that Cardassians hate babies. And so you use them as torpedoes.
Donkey balls. Did you just say donkey balls?
Well, that's apt. You use them in torpedoes. So, I mean, that just fixes the issue right there, you know? I think that far in the future they would have at least some decent birth control for people who wanted to get busy and just forbid pregnancy. Oh, yeah, I'm sure they do, but it obviously happens. If a crew member got pregnant, the parents could be given reduced duties to allow them to take care of the child, alternate between the mother and father. Yeah, I mean, there has to be a way to do it, right? I don't want to get into it, but I would not be pro-abortion, even in hectic situations, unless, obviously, if the mother is in danger or stuff like that. I don't want to get into it. I'm just saying, just on the whole, generally. Defend the Romulan Republic. Screw that. The majority of them killed hundreds, if not thousands, of Starfleet officers. What are we talking about? Cryptic streams? What the hell are you talking about? What's going on with that? I don't get it. Trip, have you not heard about them having birth control? When Cassie got pregnant in DS9 and she forgot her shot, and so did Cisco, I was overjoyed. Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, obviously there's birth control, but something can happen, right? People can forget. And then when they forget, there should be repercussions, but I don't know how you'd handle it. And there's also the fact that you can be impregnated by aliens even if you're using protection. How many times has Deanna, Troy, or Trip, or whoever else got pregnant by another species? If these ships serve for several years, but they shouldn't have families, is Starfleet a vocation of chastity? Not necessarily. You can have families. Families should just not be on the blasted ship. It's really, and this isn't me going after you, Wham Manubi, Namuba? Wham Manubu. Wham Nabu. I'm going to call you Apu. This isn't me going after you, but this is just a stupid, easy concept. If you want to serve in Starfleet, that's great. If you want to have a family, that's great. If your family is not a part of Starfleet, they don't get to be on Starfleet ships. Full stop. Absolutely full stop. You want to be with your family, find a colony or a star base to be a part of. If you can't do that, then that's unfortunate. That's what you signed up for. Nathan Norman, you'd have carrier vessels that go back to your territory with new info you glean that is too important to send via subspace. You could send them back on that, then get replaced. I mean, that's true, but then if you have a deep space vessel that's 10 years out or something like that, right? Obviously, you can't have courier vessels for that. Yeah. Well, I'm doing Windows updates as I've just reinstalled Win 7. My brother took my HD away the other day to copy and format. He forgot it. I needed 64. Okay. Fair enough, Peter Quinn. Klingons have 2 extremities. What if they only have one? What? I hate Discovery. I hate Discovery so much. I hate what Discovery does to lore. I really do. I can't stand Discovery at all. Let me rephrase that. There are good things in Discovery, but I can't stand... I just... Ugh. Why did Starfleet move away from sending a ship out for 5 years at a time? Probably because a lot of them got destroyed. That would be a good reason why they would stop sending them out 5 years at a time. Remember, if I understand correctly, I could be wrong, but in the Enterprise was the only ship to return, right? So, yeah. Just throw the families on runabouts and type 8s and tell them to fly at the Borg cube. That's what you need to do. Michael Lindsay says... Lore, what kind of show is this? What do you mean? This is a show where we hang out, interact, and you guys, when we talk. This show is a microcosm of the channel. It's a discussion, my good friend. That's all my channel has ever been. I'm not Space Doc. I'm not Trek Yards. I'm not, I don't consider myself top tier. I consider myself a guy highly knowledgeable on Star Trek that sometimes gets things wrong and talks with other nerds. We only saw one alien kid on TNG for more than a couple of minutes, and that was the son of Worf. If we consider that you have non-human crewmen and they have different biological dependencies. Sure. We saw a couple alien kids. That's not true. We saw a couple alien kids on TNG. So, yeah. Equally, I do not want to be Starfleet anymore. I got pregnant and less duties, or I get sent home. Equally, okay. I mean, here's the thing. Oh no, I don't like that they're not going to let me have kids or my family on ships that could go into battle with the Borg, the Vidians, the Klingons, the Romulans, the Cardassians, Delta Quadrant powers, parasites, AI hacked that destroys your ship. I don't like that Starfleet won't let me have families on ships that have to interact with that. That's fine. Don't be in Starfleet. It's a stupid, easy concept. Starfleet shouldn't want innocent civilians to get harmed or turn into enemy combatants. A civilian who's thinking about becoming a Starfleet wants to be with their family. Starfleet won't allow it. Civilian doesn't become Starfleet. It's easy. It's stupid easy. I mean, everybody wins in this. Everybody. Yeah. It doesn't even have to be a deep space assignment. The Saratoga at Wolf 359 had families on it, and there were 40 ships there. 39 of them were destroyed. Imagine how many families got wiped out. Wiped out or assimilated, Lore Actual. There could be several kids that now work or had worked for the Collective. That I can't even imagine that. I mean, as a father, to imagine my child being assimilated, or while alive, organs ripped out of their body via transporter. I don't care how long I'm on duty, how long I won't see my kids. You know what'll help me be a better fighter against the Borg is if I know my kids are safe. That'll help me be an infinitely better soldier. My opinion, families on Federation ships is extremely dumb. It's looking for trouble. I gotta head off now. Enjoy the stream. Talk to you later, Park. Thanks for coming by, buddy. Park. I always say your name wrong. Let's see. Being a kid in space must really be traumatic. They get transformed in another species. Friends' parents get killed in combat. In front of them, they live with the fear to lose everyone they love. Yeah, I mean, yeah. What are the emotional impacts, right? Wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. If you don't want families, don't be on Starfleet. So you agree that it's essentially a vow of chastity. If you don't want families on your ship, don't be in Starfleet. When I think chastity, I think not being able to get it on, and there's birth control. So I think you have that, you know? So when I think chastity, if you're talking about not having kids, then yes, it would be a vow of chastity. Peter Quinn, the kids and civvy partners staff the shipyard, plus you have non-commissioned Miles O'Brien there. Non-com officers are different from families, I would argue. You can always get stationed on a space station or colony like Deep Space Nine while you raise your kid, or you can think of that as just having the kid move to the same place the parent is. Yeah, that's what I was saying. They drop the civilians before entering battle by... well, I mean, and we were talking about... by the way, who's joining? Solid copy. Welcome to becoming a lore master. You talk about the Borg. Starfleet did not anticipate them. Also, it was mostly peacetime. There was no families during the Dominion War. Q Who infinitely explains. Go and rewatch Q Who. Q gives some of the wisest counsel. Just the fact that they didn't know about the Borg is exactly why they shouldn't have families on starships. You don't know what's out there. That's the point. Looking in your own backyard, you have dealt with all kinds of aliens that are horrifying. And now you want to go beyond your borders to see what else is out there. Imagine what you haven't seen if this is what you have. And that goes back to Starfleet being idiotic and naive. I said the one thing I will agree with is that Starfleet is great at being so naive and stupid that they get people killed. They are awesome about that. I mean, seriously, 10 out of 10 subscribe to the channel. They are excellent at getting people killed because they don't think ahead. Oberths are mad for families like large ovens and... Whoa. No, sir. No, sir. You want to know a good way of salvage the Enterprise death scene? Moving the families forward the stronger bulkheads of the saucer ship. Okay. Q Who had one message. Are you willing to get a bloody nose to see the endless wonder out here? Exactly. Exactly. You know you're going to go out there and get the hell beat out of you. Why on God's green earth would you take families out there? Exactly. That is the message. If you explore the universe, people are going to die. And if people are going to die, why would we have families on those ships? Is your concern about starships having kids because it's actually a bad idea, or because you begin with the premise that the Federation is benevolent? Is your concern about Starship having kids because it's actually a bad idea, or because you begin with the premise that the Federation is benevolent? I think it's a bad idea because it gets innocent civilians and kids killed. The Federation being a benevolent or malevolent entity doesn't play a part in that, in my mind. I would be very curious where you're going with that, Wham. In all seriousness, I don't understand what you're trying to say. That time everyone on the Enterprise turned into monsters. I didn't think about the kids. I didn't either until someone actually brought it up. And you know, guys, I'm going to be honest too. I'm probably going to do an actual honest-to-God debate video. I think there's a conversation there. For me, I don't see the families make us stronger as a good enough excuse to put them into such dangers. And I'm just looking at it from a father's point of view. I mean, let's say that I go off for 10 years. Yeah, having my kids there would probably make the stresses of being in the military a lot easier. It would definitely make my life better. And during normal operations, I would be a more efficient officer. That is until I had to worry about the Borg or some entity killing my kids. And then I become so inefficient, it makes it not worth it. Families on a generational ship I can understand, but families on an actual exploration, or even worse, the flagship of the organization. Yeah, that's my point. But, and I said this before, and you know, some haven't been here. I know you guys come in and out. One of the problems with this is that Starfleet didn't delineate between exploration, between military. They didn't branch off. And honestly, having it all under Starfleet, the Starfleet umbrella, is a bad idea. They should have had Starfleet be the military branch. Anytime you come upon a Starfleet ship, that's a military target. Or, if it all has to be under Starfleet, delineate beyond, make it so clear that your ships are, that you have two fleets, that you have exploration and medical, and that you have warships. And if you did that, like, and then you could have the Oberth, you could have whatever that ship was that Beverly was in command of in the alternate universe. You could have these two fleets, and while there would be enemies that would attack this clearly non-war fleet, you at least for the species that are decent, they know who not to attack. What about species with very special needs, like Gorn, who become very aggressive during their spawning times, kind of like Vulcans, just much larger and more prone to kill one of the shipmates? Well, okay. I mean, you'd have to make adjustments, obviously. What about adult family members who are able to understand and consent to the dangers? I think this has its own problems, but I'd like to hear your thoughts. If you're not a Starfleet, I think that Starfleet ships, I think that any Starfleet ship, any exploration Starfleet ship, or any military Starfleet ship should only have Starfleet members. They should only have people who work for Starfleet. Now, that said, should you allow like family members, like brothers, sisters, mom, dad, wife and husband? I don't know. I think that's a lot. I think that's a lot more understandable. But I'd have to see what they do currently. I don't know. I honestly don't know. That's the truth. Oberths will explode if someone sneezes on it. Keep children off of them. That is true. You think people like Jellicoe know how to deal with non-coms and civvies? I think people like Jellicoe definitely know how to deal with non-coms. I think non-coms would like Jellicoe over the snooty officers, especially when it comes to the Enterprise D. Definitively. I don't think Jellicoe would have kids on his ship. I think he understands the dangers in that. Families can be stationed on star bases assigned to their father or mother ship. Exactly. I agree. You know, Gorn aren't members of the Federation, but we are talking if they were. I gotta go. See you soon, Lore Reloaded. Well, see you, good buddy. See you, Cryptic Streams. Thanks for coming by, buddy. Always a pleasure. Here's the thing is, so if you look at it from an outside stance, I get where Roddenberry was going with this. He when he created The Next Generation, he wanted to create a universe where humanity and the Federation had tamed the Wild West. It was no longer as dangerous as it was in Kirk's time. And that he wanted these evolved humans where kids could be on board and where it was a utopia. He wanted the utopian view. The problem is that the world that they built out doesn't bear that out. It doesn't allow for what he wanted. Which is unfortunate. Well, no, it's unfortunate. Let me rephrase that. It's a lot better when we don't look the way he wanted it to be. But yeah. I'm Darth Killahoon helping out the channel. Thank you so much. I'm not in the Navy, but I'm in the Army National Guard, and I can guess my brothers in the Navy wouldn't be into taking family aboard a warship. Sure, I agree. Jellicoe was indeed a father. He had his child's drawings in his office aboard the Enterprise. I'm not saying that he wasn't a father. I don't think that he would have had civilians on his ship. I think he's smarter than that. Jellicoe likes children and a nice white wine sauce. That's silly. Is there any colonial exploration-centered country in which civilian and military were completely separate entities? Most colonies were de facto military bases. There's a difference between a colony, a starbase, and a ship. Especially an exploration or a military ship. There is a good point that a starbase or a colony has a high chance of getting attacked. Look at the Maquis and the demilitarized zone and things of that nature. But I think you have a better... there are better defenses, especially with star bases. And I think there's a better argument. There's a difference between minding your own business in your space and going out and looking for a fight. And I'll say this. During times of war, there shouldn't be civilians on military installations, especially military installations that are on the front lines. Once the Dominion War started and Deep Space Nine had been liberated, no families should have been allowed on Deep Space Nine. None. And any starbase that was next to Dominion territory should not have had families on them. Hell, I'll say this. While the Federation was losing the Dominion War, there should not have been one civilian, not one, on any military target. That includes space dock. That includes Starbase 01, which apparently is like, 80 light years away from Earth on a planet somewhere. Even if... So the Dominion War was obviously at the Cardassian front, and on the opposite side you had the Klingon territory. If there is a... And that would take months to years to get there with Dominion ships. Even then, any starbase that is a military target on that side should not have kids on it, especially if Starfleet is getting the hell beat out of them. You keep saying you don't think Jellicoe would allow children on his ship. What makes you think he'd have a choice? Picard hated children, yet had them. I mean, that's fair. I think the captains have a little more leeway, but if Starfleet required him to have them, then yeah. You could have USS for military ships and FSS for Federation ships with families and protection and treaties for their protection, and no families on the USS ships. I'd agree. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying that if you're going to have it, and this is perfect. This fixes everything. Have the Enterprise, have the Galaxy D be the FSS Enterprise. This is an exploration... Well, I don't think you should do it on exploration vessels, but if we're going to go this route, it's an exploration vessel. This is not a vessel of war. We don't get into fights. It can't be the flagship, and it can't go into battle unless absolutely necessary, but then you have what you want. I'd allow civilian contractors, but anyone else would be evacuated from ship stations and bases close to enemy territory. Well, yeah, I mean, sure. Civilians who are working with the military should obviously be on it, but I'm talking about outside of that scope, like families and things of that nature. But yeah, if you have contractors or civilians that are helping in military operations, you know, they expect what they get. You roll the dice and you see what happens. But yeah, it is honestly somewhat interesting to me because anyone who watches that obviously knows that I was having a lark. Also, and I get that there are new people come to the channel all the time. I understand that. So, but when you consider that the video, the way the video is made, the fact that it's done on a Saturday, which is not consistent. When you look at how it's done, everything about this video screams joking. But again, I get hundreds of subscribers a day, so I understand that people are new to it. But I really felt that it was obvious that I was making a joke, and people are getting upset about it. If you divided your fleet in the USS and FSS, you would have double the effort to organize your fleet. Sure, but you would also have civilians protected. But I tell you what, if that's a lot of issues, if there's a lot of problems splitting the ships into the USS and the FSS, let's just do this. Let's not have civilians on Starfleet vessels. That'll make it really easy. Really simple. How do you have contractors when nobody gets paid? Well, that's easy. They do it for the fun of it. Remember, they do it to expand into the universe. They also had military. They also had civilians. Interestingly enough, in TNG and Deep Space Nine, you actually have, especially Deep Space Nine, but TNG too, you have civilians that actually work for money and latinum and things. It's only within the Federation that there's no commerce. So the fact that they talk about how humans advance themselves, you still have humans that work. And we do know that the Federation does have a reserve of latinum that they use to interact with capitalist, we'll say, governments. I guess the reason I don't buy that starships really compare to the Resolution is because of the ship size. The length of voyage, sure, 5 to 10 years is too long to be anything other than a flying city-state. Okay. Please don't take our children into space. I would agree with that. What's going on, Matt Deckard? The Federation doesn't care for their civilians. They let people die at the Cardassian border. Before the war, they didn't even build a defensive fleet. After countless wars, the first contact with the board. I agree. If there's one thing Starfleet is good at, it's getting people killed. I think officers with families on Earth should have hollow quarters where you see your home and kids, and they see you, as well as it make it a lot easier, like going home after your shift. That's an interesting idea. It's also kind of weird. I don't hate it. For some reason, it sounds dystopian, though, Darth Raven. I don't know. Is that me, guys? So if you have it so you have hollow emitters and you can talk to your family, but they're actually at home, is that dystopian? Why did Starfleet move away from the civilian ships in Starfleet that they had in the TMP? They actually had civilian ships during TNG. We see a couple of civilian ships. What's interesting, I've been thinking about doing a response to Matt Pat's civilian, his fascism video on Star Trek, because he makes quite a few errors in that, which it's easy to do. I mean, if you look at any of my videos, it's easy to make errors. There's just so much there. Because we do see civilians. Base commanders should all be family men, and the explorers being young new recruits, and the older commanders whose kids are grown up, or those who never wanted kids. It makes more sense. Yeah, I think you've said that before, Nathan, and I agree. That does make sense. You might want to go to Certifiably in-game and watch videos there. Trip the Trippy one, not only do I watch Certifiably in-game's videos, we have done a collaboration. Back before I had 1,000 subscribers, I have talked to Certifiably in-game in person, and I actually have him on via email. The holograms won't be used to visit their families. They'll be used to visit their favorite club. That's true. That's true. But yeah, Certifiably in-game's a great channel. They deserve way more subscribers than they do. The in-universe solution is the same as the real world. Parents are legally responsible for children, and as such, they take the legal responsibilities for putting them in dangerous situations. No, I don't agree with that at all, Jonathan Medina, at any point. I think that the military, which is being, not for Starfleet, not in that universe, but I think the military and the Federation government takes some responsibility for who they do and don't put in harm's way. And I think that if you see an adult putting a child in harm's way, you have a legal and moral obligation to stop that. If you see a parent want to take a child on a warship, I think you have a moral and legal imperative to stop them. Just like if I'm at the grocery store by myself and I see a parent take a 4-year-old and put them in the middle of the road and make them stay there, even though that parent has the legal obligation, I have a moral and legal imperative to assist that 4-year-old. John Smith, talk to you later, buddy. The Orions like to attack Fed ships because they have a high civilian complement on their ships, making them easy targets compared to other races. Sure. If I was a Starfleet officer with hollow quarters, I would end up like Picard and Tapestry, but I wouldn't care. That's horrible. I think that would be a bad idea also. Imagine being able to be and talk with your family whenever you want, then suddenly you get fired on and you can't. Immediately drop in morale. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that. Trippy One, that's how I found your channel, from Certifiably In Game. Yeah, it's a good channel. I like Certifiably In Game. I don't watch his playthroughs, but I watch most everything else he puts by. He's a good channel. Again, he deserves 10 times what he has. The Federation putting kids on in tanks in war zones for years. That's true. If leaving their kids in the middle of the road is part of their... Oh, man, you're horrible, Mr. Miles. No, I don't care. Religion only takes you so far. You shouldn't be allowed to hurt your child for religious practices. I'm sorry. I know, that opens up a whole box, but that's just my opinion. Look at all these... What? Look at all these idiots taking videos when someone takes a fit or something. Oh, you're talking about if someone's getting hurt or something, they're videoing. Yeah. I can see a problem with the hollow quarters. If the ship's attacked or destroyed, the families are damaged for life. Like you see them, hear them, Captain brace for impact, and hologram goes off. Yeah, I mean, almost like if they're actually on the ship and somehow get to an escape pod, but they watch the ship destroyed with their family on it. It's almost as bad as that. Is there any canon info when Starfleet began with the bring your family to the war zone policy? Yeah, there isn't exact dialogue, but we can tell through the Next Generation. Basically, after the Cold War was won by Starfleet at Undiscovered Country, the Federation began building and exploring more than anything else. And so the inference there is that because the Federation was top dog and they really didn't have to worry about anything, they began putting families on board. Wham has to head out. Thanks for coming by. Given what we know about the Federation versus what we see, perhaps Starfleet is almost separate from authoritarian culture than the UFP. Talk to you later. Let me see. Starfleet is almost separate from authoritarian. I'm not sure. Next time we talk, I'll have to have you clarify that. There should be a special class of ship just for families. I agree. Cisco brought his wife to fight the Borg because it's cheaper than a divorce. Oh my god. What is wrong with you? I mean, it's a good idea. You're probably not wrong, but still. That's horrible, Nathan. It's canon the Battle of Deep Space Nine happened on Bring Your Kids to Work Day. Okay. Is there any instance of Starfleet paying their personnel? In the original series, yes. The original series, there is evidence that there was still payment. There was still a capitalistic market. The Next Generation, absolutely not. There's no more. There's no currency throughout the Federation. Oh man, that's horrible, especially given my current predicament. Went through the battle because he didn't want to get a divorce. You're a bad person, Nathan. Oh, you mean like what? Going back. I do wish we saw more Okana. We did see some Vivian cultures with Yar. Okay. Ralph Emerson becoming a lore master. But ultimately, where are the entrepreneurs in the universe? There aren't any. It is a socialist or fascist or communist, whatever, society. They, from each according to their needs, according to their whatever. They don't make any money. Would Q be a murderer for throwing the Enterprise D in front of the Borg? He'd be an accessory, for sure. Mr. Miles, giving $1. Thank you so much, sir. They could use the children, as in the movie South Park did, Operation Human Shield. That's horrible. Thank you, Mr. Miles. I will have that dollar. I appreciate that. Ships with families should be at least 6 light years from the borders of the UFP to keep the civilians safe.
The last thing I expected.
Well, that's what I was saying. Hold on. 1 second. So, take a look at the Grissom. The USS Grissom, an Oberth class ship. That's what I was talking about when I first began. From my understanding, where the Genesis planet was, that was within Federation territory. It wasn't on the edge of Federation territory. I might be wrong, but I think that it was deep within Federation territory. So if you had like the Oberth, that is a science ship, that is clearly not a ship meant for fighting, then that would be okay to have a family on. That would make sense. You need to delineate. It doesn't need to be the USS Grissom. It needs to be the FSS Grissom or something clearly. But I'm not against that. How do Starfleet personnel pay Quark then? So I think that's an interesting question. I do believe that on border worlds, and so here's something that confused people, but there is an actual explanation for it, right? And you can tell this when Cisco interacts with Admiral Jerkface, whatever her name is, Admiral Hindsight, the blonde chick who's always the bad guy. So she's like, well, all you have to do is talk to the Maquis. Just go and talk to the Maquis and make this all done. And she walks away, and Cisco's like, well, what the hell do you think I'm doing? I've been trying to talk to the Maquis. It's easy to look that way when you're on Earth. Earth is paradise. But when you look at border worlds or star bases or worlds that have to interact with other cultures, I do think that there probably is some form of payment system, some sort of barter system that they have, that they give it so that there can be interaction. We do know the Federation keeps a reserve of gold-pressed latinum in order to interact with species that still have capitalism. And so that's why they would, I think that they would use that to give to their officers. But generally, if you're within Starfleet or the Federation proper, you don't have to worry about that, especially with replicators. Starfleet gave Quark free space for his bar and living specimen. Yeah, but we also see Starfleet officers paying, so it's not unreasonable. Do any Starfleet people go to Quark's when they can get the same stuff for free from a replicator? They do, in fact, because of the interaction and the atmosphere, because they want to get Umox. I don't know. They do go though. Also, Quark is the only one that has holodeck, or whatever they're called, holosuites. They do not pay their officers with Orion slave girls because that would be a good way to have the Federation be destroyed. All right, guys, I'm going to be ending it shortly. Is there anything else you guys want to say? Anything else to add? So do this for me. For those of you who know the channel, was the video I did fun? Was it funny? Did you get the point? Did you like the troll? Or was it too much? 1, if you liked it. 2, if you didn't. I'd be very curious your guys' opinions on it. Where'd you guys go? There it is. Starfleet had the tech to give their ships strong armor like on the Defiant, but they didn't give it to their frontline exploration ships. Could have helped the crew. I agree. Is capitalism and currency exclusive? It's not, but it was the Federation was capitalistic until the Next Generation, and then they became non-needing of a market. Ones, 50-50. Cool. I'm glad you guys enjoyed. You know, even if you guys don't like the videos. A lot of people think that I respond negatively. Maybe I do, but I do listen to the feedback. So if a lot of people hated it, I probably won't do it. If I like that it... My other point to this, and honest to God, I did it for a troll. I did it for some fun. That's being honest. But I also do it because I like that it spurs conversation. And it also makes people do response videos. Ironically, if I do a serious video, no one's going to do a response video. But if I do a troll one, people are more likely to do a response video. I like starting conversations. That's one of the reasons I started doing this overall. But guys, I am going to end it there. I want to thank you so much. Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe. And I'm going to see you on the next. Lore Reloaded.